Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because today I'm going to give you guys a review for the first season of a new Marvel Disney Plus show that just came to a close recently, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. It stars Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, and has a cast with Mark Ruffalo, Josh Segarra, Tim Roth, and many more. And with that said, let's get started. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law follows Jennifer Walters, a lawyer who has a complicated life as a single 30-something attorney who all of a sudden gets the powers of a Hulk and must learn to balance her life both as Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk now that she is a lawyer with the powers of a superhero. This show has been in development for a couple of years now, and I was really looking forward to the show, especially because it's 9 episodes, it's going to be a legal comedy, and they're structuring the show a little bit differently than what they've done with the previous MCU Disney Plus shows. And then leading up to the release, we've had trailers, and it's got a lot of mixed, divisive reception online regarding the CGI and the tone of the show. And that made me more curious on where I'm going to land with the show when it premieres on Disney Plus. So now that I got to watch all 9 episodes of the show, I really enjoyed She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It's a fun show, led really well by Tatiana Maslany's performance, and I really liked how different it was from the shows, and so as embracing the comedy sitcom side of things, all while balancing her, trying to balance her life as a lawyer and a Hulk. I really liked the cast of the show. Like I just mentioned, I loved Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters. She's charming, she's charismatic. I love how she plays off of everybody, especially from her coworkers to even the more superhero-powered characters on the show. And I really enjoyed her a lot. She is really fun to watch, and I certainly hope that we see her again at some point in the MCU down the line. And she worked really well with the rest of the cast, especially Ginger Gonzaga as Nikki. I love the friendship they both had, and so as with Josh Segarra, who I knew from Arrow Season 5, and if you know me very well, you know I love Arrow Season 5, I love Josh Segarra's Prometheus, so him on the show, that's something I really enjoyed seeing. I liked watching him as Pug and how he works alongside both Jen and Nikki, and so as the little scenes we've had between She-Hulk and Hulk himself. He's not in the shows often, but I did like his appearances when we get them, and it brings back Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky in a feature-length role for the first time since The Incredible Hulk back in 2008. And it's amazing they finally got him back because the movie is way back in phase 1. And so it's nice to see him here in a different state of life and just him trying to be a different person. I really like that and what Jennifer Walters does to get involved within Emil Blonsky's whole situation. I really like that a lot. And obviously you had other surprises that I will talk about in the spoilers aside from a select few. But I really liked the cast as a whole. And this is easily one of the MCU Disney Plus shows that really feels like a TV show. One of the issues I've had with most of them is they feel like movies stretched out into episodes. That's how I felt about most of them. But She-Hulk is one of those cases where it really feels like a TV show. It reminds me of WandaVision, where this isn't a show where you can restructure into a 2-hour movie. It feels like it works at its best when you have episodes every now and then. And I really like it. It really gives us a unique feel to it once again, where it feels like this is the only format the show would work on, and it really utilizes it to the best of its ability, especially for being a legal comedy. And for a franchise that's very driven by the story, especially when you have the Infinity Saga, now we're going to be in the Multiverse Saga, it's refreshing to see something like this, where it's not all about the story, it's all about just these little situations that Jennifer Walters finds herself in, whether it's as Jen or as She-Hulk. And I like it. It makes for a very different kind of show that I liked that Marvel really went into taking risks to make a show like this the way that it is, especially because of how different it is, and they're touching some very new ground here. One thing I really liked about the show is the fourth wall breaking. Obviously, Deadpool is the most popular character to do such a thing, but in the comics, She-Hulk has done it first, and I really like how they were able to utilize her doing that in the show. It's funny, and it really has me thinking about things that will happen later, like what could I imagine because of all of these references it's making, or so as the fourth wall breaking. It's really funny, and it really suits the show so well that it would feel so drastically different without the fourth wall breaking. And it also pokes fun at toxic sides of the internet. And so as being very self-aware of the show it is, and self-aware about the MCU and a lot of the jokes and stuff people make about him, and so as the internet and toxic men, I found that really hilarious that the show really went to all of those lengths to do such a thing, because I feel like this was not something I imagined them doing, at least on the MCU side of things, and they did it. And where it's going to land for you is going to be up to you, but I found it hilarious that they were able to do all of this. It fits the show, it does it well, and I certainly got a lot of laughs out of it. The humor also worked well for me for the most part. I found things funny, especially a lot of the end credit scenes. I really liked them in those first 4 episodes, and it stinks that we didn't get any more until the finale.
Steve Rogers is not a virgin. He lost his virginity to a girl in 1943 on the USO tour.
Yes, I knew it.
You're not drunk?
Captain America!
Almost tasted that. Num 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 num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1. You know I'm the hottest. You ain't never gotta heat me up.
Oh, you are way more fun than my last lawyer.
I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion.
Dial it back.
And it stinks that we didn't get any more until the finale. But there's a lot of jokes in this show that I really enjoyed and really got a lot of laughs out of me. And I think for the most part, it does it well. Obviously, this is the most niche show in the MCU. So whether it's going to land for you or not is going to go depending on how you feel about the show. But for me and my taste, I found a lot of the humor to be very funny, and I've never watched an episode where I barely laughed at it, and I really enjoyed the humor piece of the show. I find it really enjoyable to sit through. This is also the most niche MCU Disney Plus show ever, where shows like Loki are very much widely acclaimed. You have She-Hulk, where the audience is very split on how they feel about the show, because I know people that love it. I know people that are not a fan of the show. I am on the side of people that really enjoy the show, although it's not perfect. And how it does things and where you're going to land on it feels like it's going to come down to how you feel about the show it is and the direction it goes into. But I'm a fan of what the show does. It worked well for me for the most part, and I even found the humor to be very funny on my end. Obviously, comedy is subjective, but I laughed a good bit throughout each of these 9 episodes on the show. Some I definitely laughed more than others, but I thought the humor worked well for me, and so as making sure that I'm entertained and not feeling bored while I watch it. And it's not a show where most of the comedy didn't land for me. It's gonna feel that way for most people, but for me, I laughed quite a bit on the show. This show also features cameos from other Marvel characters that I really enjoyed. Obviously, Hulk is on the show. Obviously, we got Emil Blonsky here, but we also got characters I love like Daredevil, which I really liked seeing. I love Charlie Cox a lot, and obviously the Daredevil show is one of my all-time favorites. So because they got him in the show, they utilized him so well. I loved his new suit. I loved his personality, and they made it feel like a nice progression from where we last saw him in Daredevil season 3.
Gold Devil.
I'm Daredevil.
Well, it is very daring to use ketchup and mustard as your color scheme.
Even though we had those 2 little scenes in No Way Home, with one of them being the extended version, I love that we got to see him back in a bigger role in one of the episodes, and I really liked what they do with him, and it gives me so much hope for Daredevil in the MCU when he gets Daredevil Born Again in 2024, and when we get to see him in Echo next summer. So I really like what the show does with him. It's just so nice to see Charlie Cox as this character again. It's just really fun to see Jennifer Walters work alongside some of these other Marvel characters like Daredevil and the Hulk, and just cement herself in the MCU. I really liked how they do that here. And obviously with the way the show does focus on Jen trying to learn how to balance her life as Jen and She-Hulk, and learning that her life is not going to be the same ever again because she is now She-Hulk and has powers of the Hulk. And the way it does that is interesting, and so is how it affects everybody around her, knowing her life is no longer what it once was. But I liked what they did with her character and just kind of this change she had to go on to embrace the fact that she is now She-Hulk. But while the show is very much a legal comedy with 9 episodes that are only 30 to 40 minutes each, that have some of them focus on small situations that Jen gets thrown into, I do feel like the show very much lacked a direction where, even though I enjoyed most of the episodes, I did sit there wondering what was the overall direction of the show. Like, what are they trying to do with Jen? Where do they want to leave her off by the end when we get into like either a season 2 or just when she shows up in the movies? I feel like at times it's very up in the air. I didn't really know exactly what they were trying to do with Jen by the end of the show. Because even though comedy shows very much focus on each episode being a small situation that characters get into, how do they get out of it, what does this mean for later, it does feel like while the show does work as a legal comedy because it's very different and structured in that sense, it does feel odd for the overall franchise like the MCU. And I do feel like at times I wasn't entirely sure what is the goal for some of these characters, what's the goal for Jen. And so it's one of those shows where, unlike the other Disney Plus shows where WandaVision, they want to make sure that she becomes Scarlet Witch by the end, or they want Sam to be Captain America by the end of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Loki having it end where they find out who the TVA is and the multiverse goes crazy. So I feel like with She-Hulk, because it doesn't have that, because it's very much driven by these episodes just being their own thing, it sometimes feels like it lacked direction, and sometimes it makes it a little directionless. Another issue I have with the show is that the visual effects aren't entirely the best on the show, because most of the Marvel Disney Plus shows like Loki or WandaVision, they tend to have some really great VFX work, but for here, it just looks a little off at points. It looked good in episodes like episode 1, episode 8, episode 9. And not to discredit the visual effects artists, they tried really hard with what they had to work with in the situations that they are into. But at times it feels like the visual effects just weren't that strong. And you can tell at points, but obviously it's a hard thing to do to be a visual effects artist. So I give them some slack for that because it doesn't look great. It does look good at parts. It's not as bad as I've heard people make it out to be, but it's definitely far from perfect. Lastly, I do think the middle of the show kind of meandered a little bit because I really enjoyed the first episode. I enjoyed the first half of the show, especially with the Emil Blonsky side of things. And I really dug the final 3 episodes of the show. But when we're in between, especially, but mainly with the 5th and the 6th episodes, I sat there like, wasn't quite as engaged with the show. It feels like we could have just had episodes 7 and 8 happen right after episode 4, rather than have these episodes where it's just a little situation, and by the end the episode just kind of there. But again, it is a comedy sitcom, so that is something that could have been expected. But I did feel like the middle half of the show, but it's mainly the 5th and the 6th episode, where while I enjoyed them, it did feel like they weren't as good as the rest of the show. I had fun with the show. It's not my favorite of the Marvel Disney Plus shows. That is still Loki. But I enjoyed it for what it was. It certainly feels like a TV show, which I really appreciate. And I really like Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. She's so fun to watch, and I can't wait to see more of her in the future. And I like that it tries to do new things, and it tries to be a legal comedy and do its own thing to make it stand out amongst the MCU. There are episodes I really enjoy. Like, I love seeing Wong show up. I love seeing Daredevil show up. I love when Hulk shows up. And so as just some of these episodes are really great. But I do think that it's a little directionless. It's not the best of the shows. It's not perfect, but I had fun with it for what it was, and it was a very enjoyable piece of TV that I watched. So obviously it's a very divisive show. Not everyone's going to like it, but for me, I enjoyed it. It was right up my alley, and I had fun with it. So in the end, I'm going to give She-Hulk Attorney at Law a B+. Now it's time to talk about spoilers for the show. First things first, the ending of the show with She-Hulk somehow being able to break into the MCU HQ with the writer's room, and she meets Kevin. That is hilarious.
Is this working for you? Hey, what do you think you're doing? This menu is not gonna stop me. I'm just gonna break this inhibitor real quick. All right, let's see here.
I really did not expect them to go into that direction they ended up going into, because it actually had one of the best finales to come out of a Marvel Disney Plus show, in my opinion, because it breaks the mold. It tries to do something different where, while most of the finales are either rushed or they do the exact same thing where it's like the character finally gets a super suit, they finally save the day, superhero, supervillain fight. This one was like, we saw that, we ain't doing this. We're going to do something else entirely. And I really liked it. It's obviously something I did not see coming, and I thought it was hilarious when somehow the Disney Plus Marvel tab opened and she goes into MCU Writers HQ and she meets Kevin, and they reference a lot of these other things, especially X-Men, Daredevil, all of these things.
Daddy's 2 issues.
Jen, please stop.
Oh, and when are we getting the X-Men?
I cannot tell you that.
Okay, back to She-Hulk.
I thought that was hilarious. I really liked that a lot. It really makes the finale very ambitious. It really does a lot of things I did not expect, and I thought for me it really worked, and worked for a show like this. And then lastly, we got to see Hulk in the end, where after the second episode, he's gone because he goes off on the Segarra ship, and we finally see the introduction to Hulk's son, Scar, at the end, where he introduces Jen, Matt, and her family to Hulk's son. And that is very interesting. I really hope they do something with that going forward. I hope that maybe this is a sign that they're going to do a season 2 of She-Hulk or a Hulk movie again. But that is a very interesting way to leave off Hulk as a character that now he apparently has a son on Segarra, and I'm really curious to see how that's going to affect him as a character, how it affects everyone else going forward with something like this, because that is wild. I did not expect it, and I really like the idea, and I'm really curious to see what they do with Hulk in the future of the MCU. Another thing I got to talk about the show, Wong. I love Wong as a side character. I love him making all these little appearances here. And I love his dynamic with Madison in episode 4. It's one of my favorite episodes of the show.
The demon, I think his name is Jake.
I know Jake. You do? Yeah.
Opened a portal that dropped me off at Wonger's house, and that's how we became besties.
He is so funny, and so is his interactions with Donnie Blaze, especially with the whole, can we trap him in the mirror dimension? And just their dynamic is just so cute. I really like them, and I really hope we see more Wong in the future. He's the one character where you can literally have him cameo in everything. You can literally just have Wong be that character. It's happened in Shang-Chi. It's happened in No Way Home. And now She-Hulk. It's like, I want to see more Wong, because Wong is amazing. I love the dynamic between Jennifer Walters and Matt Murdock a lot in the show, and I was really happy to see him in the finale at the end of this episode, and I really think it solidifies that Matt and Jen right now are a couple, and I'm really hoping that this means we could see her in Born Again that comes out on Disney Plus in 2024, because I love their relationship with one another, and they did things in the 8th episode that I was surprised they even went for, especially a certain scene in the back half of the episode. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And She-Hulk gave me even more excitement for Daredevil Born Again, because I love what they do with him on the show. They still have a lot of things from the Netflix show intact, like he's always late to court, he's a good fighter, he can be quippy, flirty, all of these things. And he has an action sequence that's awesome, and he reminds me so much of the Netflix show, except he's grown past that phase where he was in a very depressive state in that 3rd season, and then by the end, he's officially like a new man. And this continues that, and I really like it a lot, and I hope that we see more of Daredevil in the MCU now that we have the She-Hulk show. We're going to see him in Echo next year, and because of Daredevil Born Again, and so as seeing the relationship with Daredevil and She-Hulk progress in the franchise. It's also wild that in the finale, we now have a scene where Hulk and Daredevil were in the same location. And I really like Tim Roth as Abomination here, seeing him reform from his ways, and so as him trying to be like a coach and try to help people reform. I really like that a lot. It gives us a new side of Emil Blonsky, and I love his dynamic with Jennifer Walters on the show. And I did think it was just nice to see him return to this franchise after all this time. And I love that he goes to jail in the end because he transformed when he shouldn't have. He takes responsibility for it. He doesn't try to cause trouble for it. And the very last end credit scene in the show, in the finale, Wong breaks him out of prison. That is great. I love Wong. And I think it's funny that even though he goes to jail again, Wong gets him out. And I really hope we see more of Emil Blonsky in the future. Could be in Thunderbolts, who knows? And hey, we even got Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross for both Captain America New World Order and Thunderbolts. And I am so excited to see one of my favorite actors join the franchise. A little off topic, but I had to bring it up because I brought up Thunderbolts. But I do hope we see Emil Blonsky return in Thunderbolts because of what happens to him by the end and whatnot. Who knows, even though Wong broke him out, but I would love to see more of him. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Season 1 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law. What are your thoughts on it? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear it. Please be respectful. It's obviously a very divisive show. I am okay with hearing whether you like it or dislike it, but I want you to at least be respectful in the comments below. We can all have a friendly, civil discussion on our views of the show, but let's just have a nice conversation. I'd love that in the comments. And stay tuned for some upcoming videos and reviews I have planned. I have a review for Halloween Ends coming up real soon as I see that movie. Really looking forward to seeing how it's going to end this Halloween trilogy and the franchise potentially. So I'm looking forward to that. And so as a review for The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 1, which I'm really looking forward to making a video on. So please go stay tuned for that. I'm looking forward to it. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.